From the British driver's Mercedes contract inching closer to its expiration date, to him telling Ferrari to go suck it, here's everything on whether Lewis Hamilton's going to sign with Ferrari or not. It all started when the seven-time world champion's contract inched closer to its expiration date, and that's when the rumor mill went into overdrive. The speculation was that Ferrari was ready to give Lewis a chance to drive for them and win his 8th world title. Everyone was dead sure that the Italian team would readily drop $50 million to get the superstar. That's huge because it would have given him a chance to surpass Michael Schumacher, who won 5 of his 7 titles with the Scuderia. Fans were also talking about how the expensive contract was already moving at the top level of Ferrari. And apparently, even the president, John Elkann, was in touch with Hamilton. What made the news even more shocking was the fact that Hamilton had promised that he'd never leave Mercedes. Up until the beginning of this year, at least, he was talking about sticking it out till the end of his career. This isn't even the first time that Hamilton's future with Mercedes has been questioned. After the team's slow start to the 2023 season, there was a lot of talk about what would happen between him and his squad. Back in March 2023, he said that he's got no plans to leave Mercedes, even though he did acknowledge that the team needed a kick after the slow start to the season. What makes his dedication to the German team even more impressive is the horrible performance they had last season. And while there were hopes that the next campaign might be slightly better when it kicked off, the team just couldn't keep up with Red Bull. In the season opener, the 7-time world champion actually came in 5th 50 seconds behind Verstappen. After that, fans were convinced that Lewis is done with the team and would go for someone who can offer him a chance to win his record-breaking 8th world title. And while he did his best to reassure everyone that he's staying with Petronas, the rumors still got worse. News sites started claiming that the upper management at Maranello had its eyes set on the British champ. There's 2 options that the team can now consider. The first and most likely choice is to pair the experienced driver with Charles Leclerc. Yikes, that's not good for Carlos Sainz, now is it? The second option is to let Leclerc go so that Hamilton can be signed. The 2 teams could trade the drivers too. Hamilton could move over to the prancing horse driving alongside Sainz, while Leclerc drives for Mercedes with George Russell. Of course, people did know that Hamilton's choice won't be based on money, because both Mercedes and Ferrari are willing to pay him well. But when it comes to Ferrari, it's not just about the money, it's a team with heritage. It's one of the, no, scratch that. It's the most prestigious team in Formula One. On top of that, this has been Hamilton's dream. Lewis's dad, Anthony, told him that he'd one day drive for Ferrari when he was still his son's manager. And let's not forget that Ayrton Senna, Hamilton's idol, would have driven for Ferrari in 1995 if he hadn't passed away at Imola the previous year. In reality, Hamilton's future will probably come down to one thing and one thing only: his age. At 38, he doesn't have much time left, and he needs to be driving the car that'd help him win his 8th world championship in the next couple of years. And unfortunately, Mercedes wasn't going in the right direction. Except now it is. The W14 has been changed entirely. You see, the car has a new floor, a new suspension, but most importantly, the team has ditched the minimal side pod philosophy, something that Hamilton had been asking the team to do for a long time. If these changes can close the gap to Red Bull, the chances are he's going to stay with the team. But if it doesn't work out, then he could start looking elsewhere. Because the problem here is, Mercedes really will have a tough time coming back. Even Verstappen admitted that it'd be really tough to tell where Mercedes is going to be after these long-awaited upgrades. So many of its key staff have left the team in order to join other squads on the grid. So, of course, it isn't as strong as it used to be. Still, there's a lot of evidence that Hamilton isn't afraid to make risky decisions. In 2013, he moved from McLaren to Mercedes. What you've got to remember is the fact that McLaren was on top and Mercedes wasn't. In fact, back then, the top team was still finding its feet, or should I say wheels. It still shows that Hamilton's more about the team as a whole than the paycheck. Top Gear presenter Jeremy Clarkson compared the move to moving from Manchester United to West Ham. Yikes! Yet Hamilton saw something in the team that no one else did and pulled off the most successful partnership in the history of the sport. Now, one team that could maybe give him the title is Red Bull. But that's not going to happen. There's so much animosity between Red Bull and Hamilton that the two could never come together. And let's not forget that Max has a mega contract until 2028. There's just no way in heck Max and Lewis could race side by side. But hey, for the 2025 season, there is a team he could move to, Aston Martin. Somehow, this team that was P7 in 2022 has become the second best team in 2023, and it's still hungry for more. Fernando Alonso is signed with the team until the end of the 2024 season. But after that, Aston's probably going to have a free seat. But for some reason, fans of the sport just really want to see him at Ferrari. The problem with Ferrari is, while it's the most successful team in the history of the motorsport, it hasn't won a driver's title since 2007. So Lewis really could help bring the team back to the top. The sad news for Ferrari fans is Hamilton shut down the rumors. Here, just take a look at what he said right before the 2023 Monaco Grand Prix. Behind the scenes, my team is working closely with Toto, and the contract is almost ready. Sure, his deal with Mercedes might be up this year, but they were just rumors after all. It looks like our champion set up camp and is loyal to his team. Even though the W13 was in terrible shape at Bahrain, Mercedes was still near the top. Even Jenson Button laughed at the idea of Lewis Hamilton switching from Mercedes to Ferrari, saying that it would be such a big shift and completely different for him. World champion in 2009. Button was Hamilton's teammate at McLaren for 3 years, so you can bet that he knows what he's talking about. He thinks that moving to Formula One's most famous team would put him under a completely different kind of pressure than what he's faced at McLaren and Mercedes. Button said that a move like that would be something we'd all love to see, but he thinks that his old teammate knows in his heart that staying at Mercedes is the smart thing to do. Plus, Ferrari's based in Italy, which is different, and they do business in a different way. It would just be too drastic a change. Still, that doesn't mean it wouldn't have been interesting to see. It's always exciting when a driver makes the switch from one team to another. When asked about the Hamilton to Ferrari rumors on Sky Sports F1, Button said that it was the last team he could see Lewis at. It looks like Hamilton likes sticking to what's familiar, which kinda beats the whole possibility of him leaving Mercedes. And if you're wondering if Ferrari ever approached him, well, the answer's a hard no from Hamilton. When he was specifically asked if Ferrari had been in touch, he replied, no. He admitted that their performance hadn't been the best recently because of the mistakes they'd made. Still, it doesn't look like the thought of switching to Ferrari even crossed his mind, because his team was working on negotiating with Mercedes all this time. Since Ferrari is still a long way behind championship leader Red Bull, there isn't much reason for Hamilton to move to a team where he'd have to start from scratch with his teammates. If you look at everything, well, he's been with Mercedes since 2013, and he said that he wants to stay with the team until the end of his career. He's also said that he wants to be an ambassador for the team after he quits. Even Wolff has already said that he thinks a new deal will be made as soon as possible. So, from Hamilton telling Ferrari to get lost, to his contract getting closer to its expiration date, that's everything on whether Lewis is leaving Mercedes.